Back now live with attorneys Mark O'Mara and Mary Fulginiti. Mark, I listed off just off the top of my head, the things that I thought the Laundrie parents might be exposed to, depending on what the investigation of their behavior unearths. And that was false statements, making false statements, potential obstruction, aiding and abetting, harboring. And then there is that notion of a potential wrongful death civil suit. Tell me where those are off base or on base.
On base for all of them. However, all of the criminal charges are going to be extraordinarily difficult to prove for the government. One, they don't have Brian's testimony if he's passed, obviously. And the Laundries themselves are not going to testify about what they knew or didn't know. So it would all have to be from outside or extraneous evidence that somehow they can prove by their actions, maybe by phone messages, maybe by some forensic evidence that there was ongoing contact, but very, very difficult. And I don't know that the FBI or even local law enforcement is going to really want to push that issue. However, if the Petito family really wanted to keep this alive, to have some semblance of what we're trying to talk about, closure or justice, a civil suit against Brian and maybe against the family for alleging that they had some input, that could really lead, because within that they get discovery. They could depose the family. They can get some of that evidence, and at some day in the near future, based upon a lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt, that of a preponderance, they could get a judgment against the estate of Brian, maybe the family, and then at least have that judgment. And I've seen and have had cases where families do that literally just to get that judgment paper.
And some might do it just to get that discovery. I think you make such a good point, Mark. Honestly, I think the discovery at this point would be worth more than whatever blood from a stone you might, be able to get out of the Laundrie's son. He didn't seem to have much. Mary, you have mentioned that the search of the house is really of interest to you, and that also there are some rare federal laws that apply, even if the Laundries were misleading. Walk me through that.
Yeah, first of all, with regard to the search of the house, they declared the home a crime scene, which is, not totally typical when it comes to executing a search warrant. And they removed the family, which is typical, and everyone from the home when they conducted the search. What we haven't seen is a search warrant and what they were looking for. And that could be very revealing. It could reveal, not only information with regard to Gabby and the death of Gabby, but they could also be looking for information and reveal, whether or not they thought the parents had any involvement in the concealing or the misleading or hampering. And I'm not suggesting they have. I'm just saying that given, some of the initial actions, that's not an unlikely scenario. So that's why I think the search of the house actually could be very revealing. And who they talk to. People do talk. It's very difficult to keep things in. And even though they're not talking to the police and they're not talking to investigators or other authority figures, they could be talking to other family members. And you never know what is said and who will crack.
So, Mark, here's a big question, because a lot of people have been talking about the day the warrant came down on Brian Laundrie and he became a fugitive. What if the Laundrie parents had done some things to help him disappear before that Rubicon? Would they be exposed for that action?
Probably not. An accessory after the fact would have to be something affirmative to assist in him getting away from a crime. He wasn't even charged with a crime at that point. Again, they would have to have proof that Brian told him he committed a crime, and they'll never have any of that. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult moving forward. And again, let's remember one thing about the timeline here. If, in fact, and we've started this segment with the premise that those are Brian's remains, if that's true, and he was there from the very first day he went in, leaving that Mustang out there, then nothing that the family did from that point forward suggests any guilt on their behalf, does it? Because he was gone, he passed away or killed himself, whatever, and they just did what they did with no contact with him, with no assistance to him. So in effect, finding Laundrie's bones or his remains there are going to help exonerate his mom and dad from what we all presume is his ongoing assistance to him that obviously didn't exist if he passed away in that swamp.
Mark O'Mara and Mary Fulginiti, I can't thank you enough for your wisdom. I will follow this, I think, like you will, day to day until I find out what it is they have discovered in that house, in that big raid, and what they have in Wyoming as well. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Be well.